Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Timothy Lee, and I'm a mining analyst here at Red Cloud Securities. We welcome Chris Wright, Doug Cavey, and Sherry Roberge of Defiance Silver. They will speak to us about Defiance's exciting search for more silver in a legendary camp, as well as its gold copper project, both in Mexico. We will have a 15-minute presentation and then a 5-minute Q&A session at the end. Attendees, please feel free to ask questions using the Q&A link below. Take it away, Doug.
Thank you very much, Tim. Good afternoon, everybody. I'll be making some forward-looking statements, so a quick disclaimer here, found at the front of the presentation on our website. Thanks for the introduction, and you're right, we are on an exciting hunt for silver. Defiance is a Mexican-focused precious metal, base metal exploration company. We have 2 advanced assets in Mexico, one located in basically geographic center of Mexico, the San Nicasio project in the Zacatecas state, right next to the capital city, Zacatecas, and the Topal project, which is located in Michoacan, about 4.5 hours drive southwest of Guadalajara. San Nicasio project is a silver typical vein system, silver rich, some base metals. And the Topal project is a large porphyry epithermal environment, measured and indicated resources, 1.8 million ounces of gold, 813 million pounds of copper. And as I said, both are advanced assets for different reasons. Defiance Silver has a robust resource base at Topal. We have exploration potential at both assets, both near resource building exploration potential at San Nicasio and Topal, and both exploration targets outside of the main resource areas. We have a team of people who have been doing this for a long time. Our management and senior management, in-country management, and senior management with the board of directors have over 200 years of cumulative mine exploration, mineral exploration, and mine development experience, and over 100 of that is in Mexico alone. I've been through the M&A space and transaction space in Mexico a number of times, often to mine development. We have a strong leverage to precious metal prices. Topal is every $100 million, every $250, the increase in the gold price adds $100 million to the post-tax NPV. About 35% of the company is held by management, key shareholders, and a number of institutions. And we're drilling right now. We have drill-ready exploration targets on both assets. And like I said, we're drilling out resource bases in very exciting parts of Mexico. Recently completed a financing, so strong cash position, $19 million in cash in the bank, about $19 million. We have a market cap of just under $200 million, 219 million shares outstanding, fully diluted 257 million shares, and like I said, about 35%. So strong financial position, strong capital structure, and we've had a pretty good run since last March 2020. So a lot of value has been added through the exploration really at the Zacatecas District project and some of the ongoing works at Topal. Zacatecas is a prolific part of Mexico, one of the sort of main mining centers of Mexico, about 40 kilometers away from the world's largest primary silver mine. Some of the more recent in-developed projects, such as Mag Silver's Juanicipio, is located nearby as well. And we're about 3 kilometers away from the Cozamin mine, which is owned by Capstone Mining, which is a large 3,800 ton per day underground operation. So very historic district with a lot of modern mining infrastructure going in and a lot of modern mines being operated. We have about a quarter of the historic district put together. It was through an acquisition with Mag Silver and then Pan American Silver. Building on that resource potential, 16.9 million ounces in the core San Nicasio project with about 20 kilometers of vein strike length of exploration potential. We like to think of this project as Fresnillo from the 1960s. So Fresnillo was discovered a long time ago, much like the Veta Grande vein system in the Zacatecas district. But in the 1960s, it was out of ore. Stepped back, started conducting discovery-focused geoscience, which we were fortunately able to do a lot of the early modeling work last fall and last spring. And so we were able to put together some targets very similar to their Santo Niño discovery, very similar to these parallel veins and veins with deeper roots. We saw that there was a lot of high-grade material in the system, both on parallel veins, but as well at depth in the Veta Grande outside of the historic workings and where the current resource estimate is mostly put together. So we've been drilling since December. We put out our first set of results in early May. And so we've had some pretty good success. We're drilling about 200 meters below the current resource, 200 to 300 meters below the current resource estimate, hitting wide widths of silver base metal material all above our cutoff grades of the resource estimate. And in fact, we hit some of the highest grade mineralization drilled on the property to date by Defiance Silver. So we'll be building out in this main resource area, targeting down dip as well as along strike. We've been systematically stepping out from these drill holes And so we have a pretty consistent flow of work here in the main Veta Grande zone for the next 12 to 18 months, building on our knowledge of the resource estimate, but as well drilling outside of where the historical workings were, well below, and targeting areas that have seen no drill holes in the past and no real drilling. The second and, well, the pipeline, sort of blue sky pipeline part of the district is called the Lucita transaction, the Lucita property, and it's broken up of two different main vein camps. In the north, it's the Panuco deposit, which is about to be drilled by a company called Zacatecas Silver. We have the drilled on-strike extension of that vein system on our property, but our chief focus area is really in the central block there, right next to where it says Lucita, and that's called the Palenque vein. And the Palenque vein is a large, about 4 kilometers up to 4 kilometers long, up to 12 meters wide, grading up to about 700 grams per ton silver structure that has never been drill tested before and was slated to be one of the top exploration drill tests in Mexico for Pan American silver prior to us acquiring the license. So a really good advanced target, about 2 kilometers away from our resource area. So it fits into our exploration thesis or exploration targeting, try and put together a large mineral system within sort of the existing infrastructure. And we have a crew on the ground there right now. So we are actively working the Palenque license to get it drill ready for later this year. So what are we doing in Zacatecas? We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We know that the discovery-focused geoscience works, operating in very linear fashion, work our targets up, rank them, and we're fully financed to do that, to test those targets. We have that sort of two-pronged approach where we're drilling out the main resource area, looking for additional resources in that main part of the Veta Grande district. And then we have this 20 kilometers, more or less, of vein strike length that has never been tested with drill holes before. Some of it very high-grade material at surface. So a lot of upside in terms of the mineral system. And we think there's a good capacity to add ounces to this already advanced asset. In 2018, late 2018, Defiance purchased it's sort of a merger acquisition of a company called Valoro Resources, or Geologics, previously known, and purchased the Topal Gold Copper project. We have 100% ownership of it, and we recently entered into an option to repurchase the 2.5% NSR. It's got a large resource estimate on it, 1.8 million ounces measured and indicated gold, 813 million pounds of copper. Good infrastructure, and it's an advanced asset, had a PFS done in 2012, and an updated PEA done in 2017. A lot of unanswered questions with this project, what kind of deposit style. It's very much a porphyry epithermal camp that's nearly intact, and it does have a lot of upside outside of the current PEA, but the economics that were done previously do demonstrate a pretty robust mining scenario at $1,250 gold and $250 copper, post-tax NPV of $169 million. Post-tax IRR 24%, and a 2.3-year payback based on an initial $214 million US capex. So not a huge capex, and I think that lends into the mining style, or plays up the mining style of a low-cost heap leach operation in the first 5 years, and then transitioning, or in conjunction and transitioning into a much larger sulfide operation, copper gold sulfide operation. As we said, it's very leveraged to the price of gold at $1,500 gold and $3 copper. That post-tax NPV doubles to $45 million. As I said, years 1 through 5, you're in that oxide and sulfide mining. So years 1 through 5 production is quite consistent. And then it drops off after year 5. We believe this can be a 100,000 ounce a year, 10-year producer. And that's by organically adding ounces to the back end of this project, not by pushing ounces from the front end into the back end of this project. As I said, the economics in place, the initial capex, and your all-in sustaining cost is quite low. So value creation through adding ounces, I think, is, or we believe, is one of the paramount next steps forward for this asset. We've divided the exploration potential into 2 blocks: the west block and the center block. Then there's some regional targets outside of there. The west block consists of the south zone, we'll say the south zone extension, the center block, more epithermal targets that are defined by more higher grade gold and silver content. Our south zone target has an existing pit shell designed onto it. That's the approximate base of the pit shell. And the deepest hole into that target came back at 188 meters of 1.04 grams per gold and 0.38% copper. We have the inferred ounces that were modeled based on some of this drilling come back as the highest value NSR rock per ton on the property. So this is our #1 exploration target in the district, is building out this porphyry target where we have a good control of the geology and a good control of the deeper drilling, which is some of the highest grade drilling on the property. Our second target is within the main center block, or the Tizate block, and these are epithermal, high-grade epithermal targets outside of the Tizate pit, which is one of the key development proposals for the property, and that's the off Tizate and north Tizate target, where we have about 12 drill holes that we could go do in this part of the property, following up on high grade results from Tizate hole 18, 25 grams gold and 555 grams silver, within a corridor of high grade geochemistry, positive geophysics, and the structural setting that we are seeing in the sort of west block, where the intersections are forming these big deposits along the intersections of the break. So good geology, good geochemistry, good first pass drilling, and we'll follow up with some drill holes there into the higher grade stuff. So both projects offer good exposure to strong resource bases. We have a building resource target at the San Nicasio project, which is a silver-rich system, and then we have significant exploration potential outside of that resource target at San Nicasio. As I just showed you, the south zone target at depth increasing in grade. We're looking for hotter temperature target, higher grade mineralization at depth there. It's an immediate walk-up exploration target. As well, we have a host of other targets outside of the proposed pit boundaries at Paul, building on an already strong resource base there. A team of people that are world-class and are driving this forward with expertise and diligence, and as I said, on the ground right now. Strong leverage to precious metal prices, kind of a cliche. I guess most companies, precious metal companies, do have that leverage to a rising precious metal price environment, but we do have that sensitivity as demonstrated by the gold and copper movements. Every $250 of gold price increases, it adds $100 million to the post-tax NPV of the Topal asset. Strong structural alignment with the shareholders, strong institutional following, and we're really just philosophically aligned with our shareholders and what they want and what we're doing, and keep pretty open lines of communication about how we plan to advance these projects forward. And it's happening. We're drilling right now. We've got about 16 holes that we've drilled so far to date in the San Nicasio area. A lot of relogging, surface crews on the Lucita property, and then we're looking to ramp up our ground exploration at Topal in the next 4 to 6 months, with hopefully a drill program over there starting in early 2022. So a lot of catalysts to look out for: drill holes, drill results, ongoing works on the properties, and hopefully some Topal news to come in the next 12 months.
Great. Thank you very much, Doug. And now we have time for a Q&A session here. One question is, and you've kind of summarized, but I guess to reiterate kind of upcoming plans here, because you do have quite a few different things potentially going on. And just to summarize, what are the targets that you're looking to drill right away, and then potentially down the road?
Yeah, upcoming 6 months is going to be heavy on Zacatecas. We have an excellent operating partnership with Major, a lot of flexibility on where we're going. We're working at permitting areas that have never seen any drilling before, and we worked up from the ground up on our initial targeting programs that were going on last March, April, May, June, and then some in the fall as well. And so we have the main resource area at San Nicasio that we will be absolutely focused in on drilling, as well these more regional targets, including Palenque, that we hope to drill about 5,000 meters there. We have 8 to 12 holes planned in the main zone at 400 to 600 meters per hole, some a little bit more, some a little bit less. And so that sort of gives a guidance for the next phase of drilling in that main resource zone. And then, like I said, we have more targets on the ground than we do meters to drill with, but we're looking at about 5,000 meters of regional drilling at San Nicasio. Same thing with Topal. We could go big, or we could go, pretty tight, depending if we focus drilling in on the south zone, or if we step down into a lot more of those regional targets that I talked about, more epithermal style mineralization. We're looking at anywhere from 5,000+ meters at Topal, but we could go in there with a pretty conservative budget, and I think test some of those really low-hanging targets, such as the depth extension of the south zone, with just a few diamond drill holes. 3 or 4 holes would really do a good job in that area. So it's a bit of a moving target, how much we'll spend at Topal in the next 12 months. But if you were to take an estimate, we're doing about 80-20 right now, and I would say that in the next 12 months, you'll start to see that Topal number come up to a much bigger spend, just when we start to get drilling. Drilling costs really does drive that spend rate.
Sure. Yeah. And then kind of reiterating at Topal, a lot of it is copper gold mineralization that probably is more porphyry style. but you've also identified some epithermal targets. Could you, I guess, elaborate a little bit about that?
Yeah, certainly. It's almost an intact system. So the geology of the whole area is it's this major crustal scale fault. It's where you have a major plate subducting under what was effectively continental Mexico, and then it was putting pieces of the crust at the time onto the continent. It's called the Trans-Mexican Volcanic Belt, and they have both signatures, and you have what is almost an intact porphyry epithermal system. And there is definitely porphyry mineralization in the north and south zone, which were the original discoveries of the area. And at depth, it's looking like a really, very coherent porphyry target where you're going from lower temperature to higher temperature mineralization as you go deeper into the system. And it's very, it's structurally bound to a regional fault. And so there's a lot of upside in the exploration along that fault as well. And then we do have, it's your very classic porphyry style mineralization, porphyry style alteration signature from top to bottom of the system. Whereas in the Tizate zone, which has been looked at as a porphyry just because of its neighborhood and its affinity to the other systems, does look to be much more like a outboard epithermal environment, epithermal system, maybe intermediate or high sulfidation. And so we think that that does represent kind of a different target. It does follow the same mining processing flow sheet as the north and south zone, but the Tizate pit does have a different mineralogical and structural character. So we're going to target those epithermal or the sort of the newer worked up epithermal targets as kind of a different thought process as to where we would put holes and how we would look at the structural geology of those of that type of system.
Great. And then looking back at Zacatecas, obviously you have different properties there. And could you tell us a little, kind of break apart the properties, I guess, in a sense, and what the targets, how the targets are kind of different on the different, in the different areas there?
Sure. Zacatecas going north to south is kind of like a set of piano keys. So if you look in the south of Zacatecas, where you have some operating gold mines, and then you go through the town of Zacatecas, where you have all the historical operations that were found in the mid 1400s, and then you go north to Cozamin from there, and then onto our properties. It's sort of like you have up and down piano keys. So you have some blocks that are higher and some blocks that are lower, and so you're getting different levels of the system exposed at the surface or at different elevations. And so we've identified where we are, we think, relative to the Cozamin mine next door. And so we do have a lot within the it's a different type of mineralization. It's more of an intermediate style sulfidation mineralization that we think has a lot of potential at depth once you get a handle on the structural geology and what's going on. Where are you in that piano key, and what type of package of mineralization are you in? So there's an immediate target, of course, in the main San Acacio resource area. It's a very well-defined silver system, very well-defined structure, but it's what's going on at depth and then what's going on as you move forward, farther north, because you do get into higher level style mineralization. So a piano key that would be higher up versus a piano key that's got your finger on it. You get into higher epithermal, higher up in the system type mineralization. And those typically tend to be higher in precious metals. Your ratio of precious metals tends to be more flavorful of gold and silver. And we see that as we go north through the district, as we get up into the Panuco licenses. And in fact, those Panuco targets are being drill tested at depth by Zacatecas Silver. They recognize that the stuff that's sitting at surface and what we see on our Panuco license at surface is still the top of the boiling zone. So there's a lot, another couple hundred meters or so of very prospective geology below that before you get into a more transitional environment. So we have the full kind of gamut of epithermal systems before you get into more of the base metal, deeper types of geology that you see at Capstone. So working through that system, reconstructing it, and working through that, and targeting around those types of targets, and we kind of have them all on the property.
Great. And then I guess one question that I would finish it off with. Obviously, you have, it's primarily exploration focused at this point, but T'Pol obviously had past studies and things. Would you look to advance through the development stages, maybe become a producer someday, or is the primary focus here exploration and maybe monetize projects?
Yeah, so the upside at T'Pol is, as you can see, it is an advanced project that the next step is to prove the mine feasibility and take it into production. A lot of the early work has been done. That is the stage of the project. It's had a dozen different scoping studies, internal, external, PEAs, PFS, economic assessments. It's it's got a very solid group of data. It's got a lot of really strong metallurgy that's done on it. It takes the next sort of strategic move to get the ounces out of the ground, and it's got a lot of value for who wants to do that. First Blast makes money on that project. It's got a low strip ratio. It's got a lot of optionality as well. For us, we want to define the total size that gives the maximum value to the deposit, define the total size of the mineral system that we can, get that into the PEA or get that into the economic study and a resource estimate, and then begin to decide what we need to do. Is it an update the PEA and then go through feasibility, or what we're seeing is, to take this from feasibility. We have to make a decision, like a decision point after we've conducted some of the work that we've done. I think it's too early to say what the next most logical step is. You could just redo the PEA and update the numbers to take a much more current price of gold and silver, gold and copper and silver. However, we see a lot of upside with the drill bit there for very low entry. It's not a big barrier to entry to test some of these targets, and that's when we make a decision. But it's very much at that stage where it needs to either go to feasibility or get into an arrangement, strategic arrangement, where you are looking at the long-term mineability of this project.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Doug, Chris, and Sherry, for being with us today.